Good morning. I will now call the Monday, March 20th, 2023 regular town council meeting to order. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, I would call for a motion to request to add an agenda item under new business 9A. This would be consideration of a resolution to declare an emergency for solid waste collection and disposal.
So moved.
First by Councilor Garrett, second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is the approval of the March 6, 2023 Town Council meeting memoranda. A copy has been posted. Are there any questions from councilors? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Councilor Melton. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next would be the approval of the March 20, 2023 claims. Are there any questions from councilors?
Motion to approve.
First by Councilor Melton. Also, the second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next would be a request to speak on agenda item. Amy, do we have any requests to speak on agenda items?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Up next would be Mayor Administration Update. I did not receive anything in our packet for the Mayor or the Administration Update. Up next would be Town Council Update. Are there any updates from councilors? Okay. Moving along, we have the next item up. It's the trash and recycling services seal bid opening. We are not required to take a vote on this, councilors. This is the opening of the bids that have been received. And we have Lance. Morning, Lance.
Good morning. Normally, I try and be as expeditious as possible. Today is not one of those days. I'm camping out here for a moment. So allow me to get set up. And with me this morning is Linda Defoe. She is the administrative assistant in the DPW, and she's here to help keep me organized and keep this process on track. While I'm booting up here, we can begin. For a long time, very long time, one of the services the town has provided is a trash and recycling residential service for residents in the urban service district. It has been a number of years, in fact, since 2009, since the town has last engaged in a contract procurement of this type. So for those in the audience and listening, if you currently pay your trash bill through the town and WM is your service provider, this in fact pertains to you. Back on December 28th, the town was notified by WM, formerly Waste Management, that they were capitalizing on their 90-day opportunity to issue a non-renewal letter for the town. Therefore, the current contract terms expire on March 29th. We immediately then began the public bid solicitation process, developed specifications, and advertised publicly. So what is this new trash contract going to look like? Basically, it is the same as the services that we are used to from the past. This is a weekly trash collection and a bi-weekly residential recycling collection. All material or all residents will be provided one cart for their loose recyclable materials as we have in the past, but now all residents will also receive a nearly identical container or cart for their residential trash. The reason for this is there essentially are no more hand-picked contracts. The days, particularly in a highly urbanized area, the days of any type of trash can being set out requiring employees to hand load into the rear of a truck are gone. And most, if not all, of the qualified vendors are not entertaining these types of contracts any longer. However, this will give us the best price. Obviously, there is less employee overhead. And those employees that operate the automated vehicles are not going to experience the injury rates they have And of course, this would eliminate a lot of the broken bag syndrome, loose trash, animal infiltration, et cetera. So all in all, it's a much better process, and I'm excited to see this implemented town-wide. We did receive in a timely manner 3 bids this morning as of the deadline of 7:30 a.m. And to help kind of lend some clarity to this process, I'm going to hand out some forms for you and explain them briefly. If Linda would be so kind as to share one of each of those with the council. So as I mentioned, this is a schedule very similar to what we've been used to, with the addition of the residential trash cart. The terms of this contract, and of course, these are the specifications that we issued that will lead to a contract, but this contract contemplates an initial 3-year term. Contractors are allowed to submit an escalating per household price in each of those 3 years. Upon the conclusion of that initial 3-year term, the contract is extendable for an additional 3 years upon mutual concurrence by both parties, provided that that 3-year extension remains at the fixed 3rd-year price of the initial 3-year contract. So going back to the forms, the first form I'd draw your attention to, and could I have one for reference, please? Thank you, is what titled Exhibit B. Digital format. So when I open these bids, just so you understand or know what I'm looking for, I will be looking for this piece of paper, which will have been completed by the contractor within their sealed bid. And you can see, hopefully this is fairly self-explanatory. Across that top line, line 1, is the monthly charge that these contractors will propose per resident for each of year 1, 2, and 3. And then, of course, to calculate that far right column, you take the months times the number of customers established at the issuance of the bid specifications, which was 6,387, multiply that, 12 months, and you have an annual cost for that service. The next line below that, labeled line 2, is the same for the municipal trash and recycling. We have trash dumpsters and we have recycling dumpsters. All of those have been identified and quantified and were contained within the bid specifications. So contractors can provide a monthly service fee for that service on each of 3 years. Once all those things have been added up, that bottom line in that first table, which says base bid proposal, where it reads 3-year total base bid initial contract amount, all those services are added together, and that is the value of the account or the contract initially. Now, I would point out here that this obviously is an escalating account. As new users come on, it automatically increases, so we don't have to do anything once we've established this base unit rate per residence. But we do need to have that initial contract amount for purposes of comparison. That is the number that will be used to determine who is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And also contractors are required to submit various bonds, bid bonds, performance bonds, payment bonds. So we need a value of the contract initially. You will see below that there is an alternate bid proposal form. I was asked to include at the town's discretion. This is not part of the base bid. This is not part of the calculations necessary to determine the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. But there was interest in a post-holiday, pretty much free-for-all trash system for 1 week, your collection after the holidays. You can put about anything out you want that's not unreasonably heavy. And that is then obviously a return to a hand pick. You know, we can't distribute carts to accommodate all that. So that would be one occasion if the town chooses to select this alternate, that hand trash would be. You look like you're leaning in with a question.
Me?
Yes.
Yes. Does the lowest bid win automatically?
So if you submit the lowest bid amount and you are deemed to be responsive and responsible, and those are terms that are defined in the statute, then yes, we are bound to award this to the lowest qualified firm.
Thank you.
Lance, I had to have a couple of questions since you're entertaining them now. You mentioned biweekly recycling. It's on here. Just want to clarify, that's not an opt-in. That's everyone will be provided that service.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may interrupt your questions, I'm sorry, this brings up a good point. The baseline at the onset of the contract is that every household will be provided 1 trash can and 1 recycle can. For anyone who doesn't feel that's adequate for their house, you can request up to one additional can for each of the services. Now, that will be a charge that will be determined by the awarded contractor to that resident for those additional cans, but it does not affect the collection rate. All right, contractors were told that they could charge for the additional can to deliver them, get them out, charge them a rent for a year, much like our previous raised trash. You could get a trash can from them for like $97 a year. So the contractors can charge for the can, but they still have to collect at the same rate. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry for that interruption.
No,
but
that's fine.
That was a good
Thank you.
reminder for that point.
You're thinking of questions I haven't thought of.
Councilor Burke, can I just ask one question related to that?
Yeah.
Is there any thought given to all the thousands of existing cans that exist out there that will now no longer be taken in terms of how those will be recycled, disposed of? Is that on the homeowner?
No, anyone who has a can that has been provided previously from Ray's and then assumed by WM, if WM is not the awarded contractor, they will come out and collect those cans.
Wrong question.
Sorry.
So for example, I have a can provided for recycling, but I have personal cans that now in this contract are no longer needed. Is there a way to facilitate properly getting rid of those with this contract?
Not under this contract. That's left to the property owner, the homeowner. If the town and the administration wants to look at developing a program, we could do that, but it is not part of this contract.
Okay. I don't know how you throw it out if you can't put it in the can that you're given.
Understood.
Plan to take it to like a.
Yeah. Well, we can figure about that later. I was just curious.
We're dealing a lot today with the finances and the rate amounts. Implementation is an entirely another issue, depending on who is a successful bidder.
Well, let me just plant that
today.
seed then, just as.
Of course, it's nothing we haven't considered, but there
Got it.
is no plan as part of this process today.
I'll stick to the finances then.
Lance, this may be an implementation question then, but did we specify at all within the recycling part of the contract, types of recycling, or is it just kind of, I mean, that's such a broad term to say you cover recycling, but I think Ray's currently covers plastics 1 through 7. There's like a styrofoam exemption. Did we specify anything, or is it just kind of like?
We did not specify that because we did not want to put anyone in breach of contract. We can't control the secondary markets for those. We have requested letters or commitments from the secondary processors, who is going to receive their waste, who is going to receive what type of waste. That'll be part of the review of the bids in depth once this morning is over. But we did not require specifications simply because we can't control the markets.
Do we then determine kind of where the trash is ultimately disposed? Maybe you alluded to there's a separate contract, or is that just, I would assume whoever you go with, wherever they already have a contract where they dispose, that's who we end up using.
That is correct. They have to provide that information with not only recycling, but trash. Where's it going? Many of them have their own facilities now. So if they self-perform, they can certainly list that.
That makes sense. And then the last thing, just to clarify, on the heavy trash pickup, what was the ask at this point of the town that they would provide for heavy trash pickup?
Are you referring our spring heavy trash program, or the post holiday?
Year could be, one heavy item per month. I mean, there are different ways to do it.
So what is contemplated under this contract is one single post holiday unlimited residential trash collection. Okay, that is separate from the town's heavy trash program that we implement typically in spring. Now, the heavy trash services, our spring cleanup, just to use a term to keep it more clear, is not part of this contract. Okay. However, explanations were provided to the bidders with the understanding that once a contract is in place, the town intends to continue with that heavy trash program. Now, that's typically been on the town's dime. It is outside of this contract, but we made them aware, gave them historic data. This is typically what's generated, and the expectation will be you will work with the town to implement our heavy trash program outside of this contract.
Yeah, I know people really value that. So hopefully we can.
We really, really hope to keep it going.
Right.
I know I already have my stuff queued up.
I know you do, brother. Thank you.
All right. I think we were going through forms. So that is the bid form, just so you see what I'm reading and what the contractors are submitting. Out of all these packets, we're just looking for one sheet of paper initially. This is a tally sheet also that I have provided to you, that anyone who wants to play along at home can record these numbers as I read them out, and just note that while the bid form has the data organized horizontally. This has it vertically. I have pre-populated. You'll see with company names across the top. Those are the list of specification holders that could have possibly submitted bids this morning. I believe that has covered all of my trash, all of my prefatory comments. Once we open these bids, they'll be reviewed for accuracy, completion, and compliance with specifications and awarded to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder according to law. And what's next after this bid opening? And after they're reviewed and a lowest responsible bidder has been determined, at your April 10th meeting, this board will at least consider an ordinance to codify the trash rates under the new contract. You may be asked to conduct a public hearing on this. I've been told that that would probably be a good thing to do. However, the statute is silent to the need to hold a public hearing if you're not self-performing. Simply, we don't really have any say in what rates we receive. We have no influence on them. So we're not setting a rate other than what this pass-through fee is. If we were doing this ourselves, we would have to have a rate, explain why we want to charge what we do, like we do with the wastewater utility. But I leave that to the attorneys to determine what the appropriate courses of action are. And I will point out, I had provided in an email a schedule of events to keep this on track. If it is determined that this body should entertain or hold a public hearing, we would want to basically have that prepared by the end of this week in order to get it published 10 days in advance of your April 10th meeting. I
Lance,
think, yes.
Before you jump into opening these, I just want a quick point of clarification. You said the last time, I've had a lot of residents ask me about this process and when the last time we've gone through it. And you mentioned earlier, 2009 was the last trash bid. Is that correct? 14 years ago?
That is correct.
Okay. So I think that's important for everybody to know. Obviously, a lot of things have happened over the last 14 years. In addition to the acquisition of, the prior trash company, like I would certainly anticipate a need, some changes, which would likely facilitate a need from this council to come in and with additional funding at some point too.
Yes, it is quite possible because this is a pass-through account, meaning that we receive payments from customers and then turn around and when we're invoiced from the contractor, pay them, theoretically the same amount. This is a zero-sum game,
Sure.
Dollars in, dollars out. And during the implementation, which I have no idea what will look like yet, because we really can't have real conversations until we learn what's in these submittals today. But when we get into implementation, there may be some financial transactions necessary for the town to cover any stopgap or funding gap between the old rate and the new rate.
Thank you.
All right.
You want like a drum roll or something? I mean, how do we do this? Not really going to do it.
Anything you like.
Lance, while you're doing that, I have one quick question regarding the Boone County Solid Waste District. Since this is a pass-through, does the town of Zionsville collect or who pays the Boone County Solid Waste District?
That's the contractor. The contractor has to handle any reporting or fees required from their operations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, the first bid I believe is from Waste Management, WM, as they are moving to. All right, and it will take me a moment to find, thank you. Kind voice from the audience. Okay. The 3-year total base bid. Sorry for that well-timed pause, right? Everybody's so
Yeah.
curious. The total 3-year total base bid initial contract amount is $4,101,564.24. Going up to line 1, under the monthly year charges for combined residential trash and recycling, year 1 is $17. Year 2 is $17.85. Year 3 is $18.74. I am going to not read that right amount because it's just calculated. And you'll see why in just a moment. Under line 2, in each of the 3 years, there is no charge for the municipal trash and recycling collections in our dumpsterized facilities. So that is 0 across the board. That means, of course, line 1 equals their first 3-year contract. Down below, they are proposing no charge in any year for an unlimited post-holiday residential trash collection. The next bid received is from Republic Services. I may need one of my many implements that I brought this morning. Nope, I found it. All right. The bid summary received from Republic Services. The 3-year total base bid initial contract amount, $4,567,626.10. Moving up to line 1, the monthly charges in year 1, $18.78. Year 2, $19.63. Year 3, $20.51 for a line total of $4,508,990.59. Moving to line 2, in the combined municipal trash and recycling, the monthly charge in year 1 is $1,557.62. In year 2, $1,627.71. In year 3, $1,700.96 for a line total of $58,635.51. Under the alternate bid proposal form for 1 week post-holiday residential unlimited trash, they are indicating that is included, so that is no additional charge. We have a final bid this morning. I'm used to doing this in the afternoons. Thank you. Once again, a kind voice from the wilderness. The third and final bid this morning is from Priority. The base bid amount is $2,827,239.84.
Great.
Moving to line one, the residential monthly charge beginning in year one, $11.95. Year two is $12.31. Year three is $12.68. That line total is $2,827,239.84. That is because line two, there is no price indicated. We would need to verify whether that is included or not part of the bid. That is subject to confirmation, I suppose, by the submitter. We will have to be having conversations following today's proceedings. Down at the alternate bid proposal form, again, there is no price indicated. So it is unclear whether that is included or they are not submitting on that alternate. So I suppose that you've all probably been following along. So what we call this is the apparent low or the as read low bidder, subject to review of qualifications and the full submittal. And that would be Priority Waste in an initial contract amount of $2,827,239.84. So we will now take these bids and review them. We will want to move smartly. As I mentioned, our current contract expires on March 29th, and WM is under no obligation to continue services past that day, and certainly not at their current rate. President Plunkett indicated there's an additional agenda item. I believe that's related to this, and I can come back and help with that conversation when you reach that point on the agenda. So that concludes the bid opening this morning, and we look forward to reviewing all these and getting this new contract in place as rapidly as possible with as minimal disruption to services that we can achieve. Any other questions before I sit down for a moment?
We'll talk to you again soon.
I suspect we will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next on the agenda is old business. The first item on old business is the consideration of an ordinance amending the 2023 salary ordinance. This is ordinance 2023-07. This is a final reading, and we have Chief Van Gorder to present.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Come before you for a second reading of a new job description for the Zionsville Fire Department. This is the mechanic job description. A red line version or proposed version of the salary amendment was presented at your last meeting. Excuse me. During that meeting, there was some question regarding the salary at $55,000, whether that was going to be adequate for the position that was proposed. Following that meeting, I had the opportunity to sit down with HR Director Joe Keel and review all job descriptions within the town of Zionsville. Very in-depth process is completed by our HR department with job ratings and classification, and that position does rate out to a class 22. To ensure that that job matches all other job descriptions within the town of Zionsville for compensation, I would ask that we increase that amount and the maximum salary from $55,000 to the $58,891. So it matches all job descriptions in the town of Zionsville that have a rating of 22. Other than that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have. And as a reminder, it would be ask for approval on the second reading as well as an approval of the job description. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
The only question I have is with that modification from 55 to 58, and Heather, maybe this is a question for you. Does that change action we took on at the last council meeting?
So we only did it on first reading, correct?
So we can modify. Yeah, that's
Yes,
correct.
yes, so all we would need is a motion to amend with a new amount stated and then a second, and then we would have a vote on just the motion to amend and then a vote as amended. We'd need a second motion, second vote.
And Chief, what was that last number again? Would you say 58,891?
Yes, sir. $58,891.
You want me to offer an amendment?
Well, any questions? I obviously want to open up council questions.
I just want to thank you for the increase. After reading the job description, it really seemed like they basically have to be a superhero, an engineer, a firefighter, and to fix all of the problems. So I think that increase is really needed for that position to get some quality in that position. I did have another question. Based on maybe a potential catastrophic event to equipment, is there any kind of protections that person would need from lawsuits pending or anything like that? I just having somebody in-house like that just kind of made me think of that.
No, I appreciate it. It's a great question. Keep in mind, the fire department does maintain general liability insurance. We don't work on other outside agencies, fire trucks, and this is an entry-level position. So we have a director of fleet services that actually performs these functions right now. So we're not adding any additional services that are not already being completed. We are just adding staff to that position to help support the workload that we have.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Any other questions from councilors? I would make a motion to amend ordinance 2023-07 from 55,000 to 58,891.
Second.
Amend and approve.
And approve the ordinance on final reading.
Second.
Second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor as proposed. Up next is new business. The first item on new business is a consideration of a resolution to declare an emergency for solid waste collection and disposal. And I'm going to lean on Heather
Yes.
most of this
So-
and Lance.
Lance, I'll keep an eye on Lance in case he gives me a frowny face, which will make me know that I'm
Hey.
explaining it incorrectly, but
I have delivered a process. I now stand by to assist in its
yes,
implementation.
we appreciate you, Lance. So as we've been working through this process of a new bid, one of the things we recognize is that we're going to likely have a period of time from the time the contract ends with waste management until we can fully negotiate a new contract with a new vendor and or waste management for a new contract, as we've talked about this morning. So we will have probably a couple of months during that period where we are going to need some sort of temporary bridge contract to allow us to continue services. So there's no gap for the residents of the town of Zionsville. One of the things that Waste Management noted, and Lance mentioned it earlier in their letter to the town, is that they would likely need an upward rate adjustment. And you heard from all three responsive bidders this morning that there would be an increase in the rate, even if you went with the lowest contracted amount that was stated. So we're going to have this period of time that we're going to also need to come back to the council with some sort of financial proposal, probably during the next meeting, to be able to, capture that additional amount between what we currently have as the rate that's published for the residents of the town and whatever will be this new amount needed for this bridge, period of time. So there is a statute within the Public Works statute that allows for the town to use what's called the emergency procurement statute, whereby the town of Zionsville town council would declare an emergency. This is not an emergency. I know there was a little bit of back and forth on emergency this weekend. It's a different statute than declaring an emergency, for example, for the pandemic that we just went through, or for a snowstorm that would be coming through. All that's needed here is that there is a declaration by the town council that there is an emergency situation that we need to address. It would be similar to if the roof had a leak and we needed to fix it right away, so further damage was not, caused. And so what we're asking for in the resolution is a declaration of the emergency, which allows us to trigger the statute to be able to enter into a contract. This would be for just the period of time, which would need to be negotiated prior to March 29th, up until the time that the new contract with the responsive and responsible bidder is fully executed and the service is able to commence. So there may be a bridge, we may have a contract, but we may have some other time period where they're ramping up, getting trash cans delivered, et cetera. So this again would just be for the short-term period of time. I understand there's a couple of vendors that may be able to do this, may ultimately not be the responsive bidder to the long-term services contract, but that's what we're requesting in the resolution that's before you today. And we've got a lot of unknowns, as you might imagine, as we're going through this process, which is why this is coming to you kind of late in the process. And so there will be 3 bidders, obviously, that we have that we also need to reflect in our minutes that were stated earlier, which would be Waste Management, Republic Services, and Priority. So the resolution would allow us to solicit all 3 of these companies for a proposal to do this interim services agreement. Anything I missed, Lance?
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
For the record, this is resolution number 2023-08. Are there any questions for Lance or Heather?
I mean, we need to do this. I'm just curious. What date did we hear from our current provider that they would be
I believe that was December 28th of last year.
So that's when they told us that we would
Yes.
not have service after the 29th.
So there, as I understand it, the waste management contract was ending and they provided notice to the town council. And I believe I sent a copy of that, a letter indicating that they were not going to seek a extension of the current contract due to the rate not being increased. Right. And some of the pressures, and I think you're probably seeing that from all the responsive bidders that Waste Management cited was, the increased cost of fuel, the increased cost of maintenance for their trucks, as well as labor costs, which we know a lot of our businesses are struggling with.
And then at this point, obviously, Priority is the lowest bid, although it sounded like maybe there were some questions that they didn't clarify. Would it be your understanding that if we would have stayed with
well, to be clear, this is a completely different deal.
And I understand. The question would be, if we would have stayed with the long-term bidder, would that have changed this at all?
No.
Okay.
It would not have, because we would still need to go back and set a new rate, which we're going to have to do at the April 10th meeting. So regardless, you would need some sort of short-term contract. They may have been able to continue services because they already are, doing that.
That's kind of where.
But I think part of the challenge here is also the rate. And so we're going to have to come back, and we would not have known how to set the rate prior to this bid process. So even if it were Waste Management, I still think we would have needed a bridge contract, even though they would have been able to quickly mobilize to start providing services.
Right. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
So it really wouldn't have changed.
Yes,
this outcome.
it would not have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lance, are you reasonably confident that by doing this action, there will be no gap in service or no huge increase for residents in that temporary period?
So this is our only opportunity to make sure that any break in service is as minimal as possible.
Okay.
I am not overly optimistic. But again, we have not been able to have real conversations with these contractors until after this bid opening today. Obviously, anyone who has the capacity to provide interim services is not interested in 2 or 3 months of service. So I can say if we don't take this action today, I will guarantee that we will be without trash service.
Okay.
And Councilor Garrett, one thing we've contemplated, there's about a 12-day period of time. Well, there is a 12-day period of time from when the current contract ends until the April 10th meeting in which a potential new rate would be considered for the long-term contract. So it is possible and likely that we would come back to this council and recommend that for that 12-day period, the town find resources to bridge the gap, because we have not promulgated a new rate. So if, for example, I think it was $11.95, I think it's $9 now. So the town would pick up the $1.95 extra for that 12-day period of time on some sort of prorated basis until the new rate could be promulgated.
Is there, because we are declaring an emergency and our next meeting is delayed a week because of spring break, is there a way to have a virtual meeting sooner if necessary? Or does it have to be in person?
There is no possible way to have a virtual meeting. We would have to have counselors present. Some counselors pursuant to the electronic meetings policy could join virtually, but that would only be 3 of the 7.
So you'd have to have
members.
4 present.
Correct.
Is there anything we could do next week or is that too soon? Before we all leave on, I just,
Oh, to do a special meeting on the rate setting?
yeah, I mean, I don't want to leave this to like the last minute. I mean,
Yeah.
it sort of already is the last minute. I would like to just, know that our residents, myself included, are getting our trash pickup.
Right. We could consider a special meeting on the rate, but there's still a lot of back and forth. And when you're, negotiating a 3-year contract that may not be able to be completed in a week's time with the new vendor.
Sure.
So I don't know that that's going to change the outcome in terms of needing to have a bridge agreement. In fact, I would say it wouldn't. Unless Lance is, well, I mean,
No.
nothing's impossible, but it would be challenging to get it through.
I
everyone's
guess
process.
I think this body is very open to figuring out ways to support this process because I don't think anyone wants their constituents to go without trash for an extended period of time. That's bad for business.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that Lance mentioned earlier, and I need to take a look at it as well, is whether or not we'd want to have a public hearing for the rate setting. I don't think it is necessary. And so I want to maybe benchmark against a couple of other communities, how they've handled it. I think it's been handled differently. Obviously, the public is on notice now, right? That we are going through this process and we're talking about a potential rate increase in this meeting this morning, but that's a little bit of an unknown. We could put our heads together and see if a special meeting is possible for next week. So maybe we'll circle back and see what steps we need to take to be able to facilitate that.
It's all speed and risk mitigation. There's that balance, right?
Right. And if we did do a special rate increase, if we did a rate increase, I guess we would be looking at it for not just the interim contract, but for the full contract. It would be a go forward. The other thing we could do is just come back and with an additional appropriation request, which would require a public hearing. And that would give us time to prepare that for the April 10th meeting. We would not be able to get that done in advance of next week because of the public hearing 10-day requirement.
Got it. Okay.
I would like to, I don't like coming before this body without answers, but I only received information this morning. So I don't know what's going to unfold, hopefully very quickly in the next few days. But to Heather's point, there is an absolute guaranteed contractual gap between March 29th and at least your April 10th meeting. That is the contractual element of this. There is also implementation. So the contractor has 20 days after notification of award. Okay. And that's not a contract. That's once they are told you are the low bid and we do intend to award this contract. We've allowed 20 days for contract negotiation. And then there's up to 90 days for full implementation. So while we have a procedural gap in the rate, we have yet to talk actual implementation in how quickly these new facilities can be deployed and services begun under the new contract. So I don't mean to be alarmist, but let's not focus on a 12-day or 15-day gap. Let's consider this something more significant potentially.
Can you update this body, Lance, even over an email, just over time, just to track the progress? Just because I'm
You
sure we'll
didn't
get
even have to
questions, right?
ask that.
Okay.
I would have done that because this is a very important function of this board, the administration of the town, and requires a lot of close communication and working together to implement this as efficiently and quickly as possible.
So to move this forward and get this established, do we have to understand, do we have to pass the resolution, then understand the responsive bidders for short term, or do we understand those first and then pass the resolution?
Yeah, so under the requirement for an emergency declaration, the minutes of the meeting in which you declare the emergency declaration also have to list the bidders in which you are going to extend an invitation for this emergency contract. And so the three bidders would be the three responsive bidders today that provided a bid: Waste Management, Republic Services, and Priority. And so that is the three that will receive the invitation for this opportunity.
I know that there are three other listed on this sheet. I know they did not respond. Just to catch all, is there any reason why you would not list them, just to, on the off chance that one of them wanted a temporary contract? Is there any harm in doing that? I mean, obviously I'd rather focus on the three that submitted bids, but.
So I would defer to Ms. Harris on that, on no harm, no foul of just listing everyone and keeping options entirely open. However, this does not absolve the town from responsible contracting. So we have, by virtue of the proposals today, the financial statements, the capacities, the equipment list, et cetera, from the three who submitted already. So it's not, we can't go out and find Fred in a pickup truck and say, can you take care of us for a few months, right? So Heather, as to whether or not we should include those other names who were specifications holder, I leave it to you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Counselor Garrett, that probably better safe than sorry, since we are working with a tight timeline to make sure we continue services. So if you'd like to include all six, the only thing we need to do is read their names into the record, which I'm happy to do. It looks like there is actually
There are six. There's just eight.
I did receive this morning from TK Trash Cans a indication that they do not intend to submit.
Okay.
So you could remove that from the list.
So it looks
I
like,
believe as of Friday, those were all people who had not indicated an interest.
so
Sorry for the double negative.
if we modified that list, then it would be Waste Management of Indiana, WM of Indiana, Priority Waste, Republic Services of Indiana, On Point Waste Services. And is it Rarig?
I believe so.
Pacific Company.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Heather or Lance? I will make a motion to approve resolution 2023-08.
Second.
Second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, Lance. Heather. Up next on new business is a presentation by Councilor Craig Melton.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I was just going to ask that Dr. Krista Latham and Captain Sterling step up to the podium real quick. If you don't mind, please. And Chief Spears, of course, please. Today, I just wanted to take a little time to celebrate a local woman resident who offers her expert trainings to our local law enforcement agencies here in Boone County. Dr. Krista Latham, a professor of biology and anthropology at the University of Indianapolis and the director of Human Identification Center, Dr. Latham believes very strongly that everyone deserves dignity in life and dignity in death. Dr. Latham was instrumental in helping the Boone County Sheriff's Department identify the victim in the 1992 Jane Doe cold case. Dr. Latham volunteered to help put a name to the deceased found at the edge of a farmer's field in 1992. Dr. Latham used DNA extracted from the deceased and utilize new emerging technology to help with the eventual success of identifying the deceased as Maggie Ann Snagowski Jr. Dr. Latham has volunteered her time training our local departments on crime scene investigation and proper handling and identification of human remains. Dr. Latham has trained officers from the Lebanon Police Department, Whitestown Police Department, and our very own Zionsville Police Department. Not only does Dr. Latham serve in the above listed capacities, she has also faithfully served on the Zionsville Safety Board as this council's appointment. We celebrate National Women's Month. This council has determined that Dr. Crystal Latham is a standout servant to our community, and she is very much appreciated. And we wanted to thank you for your service and dedication to our community, giving a voice to those who may not be able to. Thank you. Dr. Latham, today we want to celebrate your service with this certificate of appreciation and present you with a token of thanks with a Zionsville Police Department challenge coin as well. Thank you for your expertise and through your selfless volunteerism and your service to your community. So I just want to thank you. And there's a presentation there. The certificate.
Up next on new business is other matters. Are there any other matters from counselors?
I do have one other thing, Mr. President. I've been asked several times lately, what is Zionsville doing well? As I run for my reelection campaign. This next topic is what comes to mind when we think about what Zionsville is doing well. I want to congratulate my neighbor, Amelia Lower, and the Zionsville High School Royal Airs and Choral Airs after a job well done performing at the Orlando, Florida Heart of American Nation competition. They were awarded first place in all three categories: best visuals, best vocals, and the best of show. Congratulations.
Very good. Anything else from counselors? Otherwise, I didn't entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Second by Counselor Culp. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. The next regular Zionsville Town Council meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 10th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Zionsville Town Hall Council Chambers. Please note the shift in dates due to the spring break holiday, I'm sorry. Final notice will be posted in compliance with the Indiana open door law.